To Chris.
Isaiah, and this is our unit 3 video. For to calculate the following object distance, okay, you can just slide off. H equals negative 16t squared plus s. Throw a horseshoe with these terms: initial velocity 30 feet per second, level. Leaves the thrower's hand 4 feet above ground level, lands on stake at 1 foot above ground. What is the max height? How long did it travel before hitting the stake that is 1 foot tall? Are the two questions we need to answer. So here's the diagram here, and after 0.937 seconds, it reaches its highest point of 17 feet, which is also the vertex, 0.93717. And it traveled 1.97 seconds in the air before hitting the ground at its farthest point. How high is a horseshoe? At approximately 0.5 seconds would be 14 feet, and after 1.5 seconds it would be 12 feet. Arc of the Sydney Harbour Bridge in Sydney, Australia can be modeled by y equals negative 0.00211 x squared plus 1.06 x, where x is the distance in meters from the left pylons and y is the height in meters of the arch above water. For what distance x is the arch above the road? Here's a diagram here, and if y equals negative 0.00211 x squared plus 1.06 x, and you put it all less than 52, then you want to subtract 52 from each side. In standard form, that's negative 0.00211 x squared plus 1.06 x minus 52 is all less than 0. Once you simplify, you're going to get 55.1 meters. That's smaller than x, but x has to be less than 447.2 meters. And then how wide is the cargo ship? You would take 447.27 minus 55.1, which equals 392.17 meters wide.
Imaginary numbers. So I equals the square root of negative 1. I squared equals the square root of negative 1 squared. And that equals the square root of negative 1 times the square root of negative 1. And that equals negative 1. So the square root of negative 16 equals the square root of negative 1 times the square root of 16. And that equals I times 4, which equals 4i. And for the problem, the square root of negative 12 equals the square root of 12 times the square root of negative 1. And that equals the square root of 2 times 2 times 3 times the square root of negative 1, which is 2 square root 3 times I, which equals 2 square root 3i. Numbers. I equals the square root of negative 1. So I squared equals the square root of negative 1 squared. And that equals square root of negative 1 times the square root of negative 1. And that equals negative 1. So the square root of negative 16 equals the square root of negative 1 times the square root of negative 16. And that equals I times 4, which equals 4i.
Okay, so for graphing, the expression is y equals x squared plus 53x minus 630. Once the steps to put in after you put the math in the calculator is you hit vertex, second calc, minimum right bound, left bound, and then you hit guess. And your zeros of a function, also known as solutions, are negative 63 and 0 and 10 and 0. And the midpoint is negative 26.5 and negative 1,332.25, which is your vertex. Okay, so for completing the square, the expression is x squared plus 53x minus 630 equals 0. We're going to add 630 to each side, which leaves you with x squared plus 53x equals 630. Then you want to divide b by 2 and then square it. B divided by 2, which is 53, equals 26.5. Square that is 702.25. Plug that back into the equation. You're going to x plus 26.5 times x plus 26.5 equals 1,332.25. But then you can just change the x plus 26.5. You can change that to squared. And then to get rid of that squared, you want to put the, what is this? You want to square root them, and then you get x plus 26.5 is equal to 36.5, and you want to subtract 26.5 from each side. And then you get your two solutions from there by simplifying, which are 10 and negative 63. Okay, so the expression is x squared plus 53x minus 630 equals 0. You have to get two factors that multiply up to 630, but when you subtract them, they equal 53. So we figured 63 and 10, and then we checked in, did the math, and it checked out. And then once you simplify again, you do x minus 10 equal to 0, and x plus 63 is equal to 0. When you simplify, you get 10 and negative 63 as your possible solutions again. Okay, so for factoring, you have to get two variables that will multiply. Okay, so for factoring, you have to get two variables that will multiply to, of course. Okay, the quadratic formula is x equals negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So the expression is x squared plus 53x minus 630 equals 0. If you plug in the factors, the resulting is x equals negative 53 plus or minus 53 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 630. Once you simplify, your last two answers are 10 and negative 63. But it says 10 feet is the reasonable answer. Okay, so for completing the square, the expression is x squared plus 53x minus 630 equals 0. You want to add 630 to each side, and you get x squared plus 53x equals 630. But then you want to divide b by 2 and then square it. B in this case is 53, divided by 2 would be 26.5. 26.5 squared is 702, no it's not. It's 1332.25.